let's add custom items to Minecraft. Minecraft modding courses with close to 100 topics ranging from custom tools and armor to custom block entities all the way to custom mobs, linked in the description below. Alright, we found ourselves back in the channel once more, and in this tutorial we're going to be adding custom items to Minecraft here for Forge 120x, and this is going to be very interesting indeed. First of all, for this we're going to need a new class, and this is going to happen in the tutorial mod package. We're going to right click new package, and this is going to be the item package. And there we'll right click new Java class, and we'll call this the mod items class. If the window over here add file to git appears, this just means that this class will be added to the next commit. You can just hit add and then you're going to be fine. If this doesn't appear, that just means that you haven't added a GitHub repository, which of course is not necessary. I just wanted to mention this here. Now, the mod items class is quite important because this will basically hold all of our items that we're going to register for our mod. And the way that we register an item is via a deferred register. So I'm going to type this out. I'm going to explain after we're done. So we need a public, static, final, and then a deferred register, 1F and 2 Rs. You can see once it suggests this to us, you can select it and press tab to autocomplete, and it will also add an import over here. That's quite important. You then want the angled brackets. So this is a smaller than, and then inside of here, we want to add item from net Minecraft world item. Once again, we can hit tab to autocomplete for this to import over here. And we're going to call this the items. This is going to be equal to, once again, the deferred register, tab to autocomplete, dot create, tab to autocomplete. This will also generate the two parentheses. Inside of the parentheses, we want to write forge registries. Once again, tab to autocomplete, dot items, and then comma tutorial mod dot mod ID. And basically, once again, those were all done with using the tab key to autocomplete this. Now, in the high-level overview, a deferred register is basically a long list of certain things. In this case, it is a long list of items. And we're going to add those items to that list, and they're then going to be registered at a specific time when Forge basically loads the items. That's a high-level overview of a deferred register, and usually that should be everything you really need to know, especially here in the beginning. And when you have a deferred register, you actually also need to register that, and we're going to do this by adding a public static void register method with an iEvent bus. So this iEvent bus over here, once again, tab to autocomplete. I'm going to call this the event bus parameter. And inside of this method, we're going to call items.register and then passing in the event bus parameter right here. Now, as always, of course, all of the code that we're writing here is available to you in the description below in the GitHub repository. So you can always double check and compare with your own code that you're writing if there's any discrepancies or if you get any errors, for example. Now, this register method, we want to take this to the tutorial mode or our quote unquote main class. And then just between here, so between the iEvent bus and the add listener, we're just going to add mod items.register and then passing in the mod event bus variable right here. This will ensure that our deferred register is properly registered as well, and that will make sure that our items are actually added to the game. And now, how do we add an item? Well, we add an item by saying public static final registry object, this one right here, of type item once again. And we're going to call this the sapphire. And this is going to be equal to items.register. And the first parameter is going to be a string. Now you can see that this bus right here, this generates automatically. You don't have to type this out. And I continue. I put in sapphire here as a string. And once I put in a comma, you can see that the name right here, this also generates automatically. Do not type this out. If you want to type this out, it would look like this. You can see it looks nothing like we've seen before. The name right here is generated by IntelliJ. You might say, this seems pretty obvious. I've seen this plenty of times that people don't understand that this name right here, right, name colon, you don't have to type that out. Now, after the comma, we're going to make a supplier. So that's going to be an open and closing parentheses, and then a minus and a bigger than. So this is going to be sort of an arrow right here, and that's going to be a supplier. And the supplier is going to be of a new item in this case. So you can see net Minecraft world item. We're going to hit the tab key to autocomplete, and inside of the item constructor, we're going to say new properties. Once we hit the tab key here, you can see it creates new item properties for us, and we can end this with a semicolon, and no errors should be present. And of course, once again, you can compare this to the GitHub repository in the description below to make sure that you write everything correctly. Now with this, the sapphire actually has been added to the game. However, it has no texture, it has no name, and it is not even in any creative mode tab. So that's not quite what we want. So first of all, let's tackle the creative mode tab. For this, in the tutorial mod class, you should have an add creative method right here. And the add creative method here is going to be used to add your custom items to already existing vanilla tabs and not your own custom one. We're going to see the custom one in a little bit, but for now, this is how you add them to the vanilla ones. You can say if event.getTabKey And if that is equal to the creative mode tabs, this one right here, the tabs, tab to autocomplete, dot, and let's say ingredients here in this case. So we're going to add something to the ingredients tab. Inside of the if statement, we're going to say event dot accept, and then we're going to put in mod items dot sapphire. And with this added here, the sapphire will get added to the ingredients tab. Please also note, if you don't have the add creative method over here, you can of course create it, but then also make sure to add the listener right here in the tutorial mod constructor. That's quite important. But usually if you've gone through the setup, you should have this, so no worries. Right, and now our item might be added to the creative mode tab. However, it still doesn't have a name, it still doesn't have a texture. And how can we fix that? Well, for this, we're going to need to go into the resources folder, and namely the assets folder. So this is quite important. So I want you to pay close attention to this. In the resources folder, we're going to right click new directory, and we're going to call this assets. Inside of this folder, we're going to right click again, new directory called tutorial mod. Now this folder right here, I'm calling this tutorial mod because that is the name of my mod ID. It of course needs to match your mod ID. So if you've named this anything else, this needs to match your mod ID exactly. And inside of this folder, we're going to need a couple of new ones. So the first one is going to be lang, L-A-N-G. Then once again in the tutorial mod folder, right click new directory called models. Very important, models with an S at the end. And then tutorial mod folder again, new directory called textures. So here you can see the full folder structure. It's going to be tutorial mod lang, tutorial mod models, tutorial mod textures. And there's one layer deeper that we need to go. In the models folder, we want to right click new directory called item. Very important, this has to be item, not items. It is very important that this is item. Similar in the textures folder, we want to right click new directory called item again. And we can start from the top over here. So the lang is going to be the language folder. So inside of it, there go JSON files that are responsible for translating keys of certain values in the game to their respective language. So in the lang folder, we're going to right click new file. I'm going to call this the en_us.json. Please make sure that this is written correctly. I've seen many different ways that this. I've seen en.us.json. I've seen a lot of things. It is en_us.json. Written exactly like this. You're going to hit enter, and then you're going to be inside of the JSON file. The JSON file itself is going to have a curly bracket over here, and the closing curly bracket will generate automatically. And then we're going to translate the item. The item right now will be called item.tutorialmod.sapphire, and this is the key that we have to translate. So to do this, we're going to make a string. We're going to say item.tutorialmod.sapphire, then colon, and this is the translated string, and this is going to be the sapphire. Note that right here, I can actually use uppercase characters because this is the sort of the human readable name of that specific item. And those can include any type of character, basically. This key over here generates in the following way. This is, of course, an item, right? So we've registered a new item. The name of it is Sapphire. So this name right here matches this name right here. And the tutorial mod is just our mod ID, and that is basically how this key sort of fits together. Now our item has a name, but it doesn't have a texture. For this, we need an item model JSON file, and those can be quite complicated, but don't worry, we're going to get through this, and you're going to understand them once we're through that. So in the models item folder, we're going to right click new file. We're going to call this the sapphire.json. Note that the name of this JSON file has to match exactly the name that we've given in the mod items class when we're registering our item. And it also needs the .json ending over here. We're going to hit enter again. And once again, the name of this file has to match 100% exactly the name of this one right here. So that's very important. But once that is the case, we can now fill this item model JSON file. And I'm going to type this out once, and I'm going to then explain. So first of all, we're going to have a parent over here. This is going to be item/generated. And then we're going to have textures. Those textures are going to be layer 0 tutorial mod :item/sapphire. Now you might say, what the frick is going on here? This is craziness. Don't worry at all. The parent right here determines how your item is displayed when you're holding it in your hand and in the inventory. Basically, item/generated is a normal item that you've seen, I mean, probably thousands of times. It basically takes the 2D texture and it extrudes it a little bit in a third dimension, and that gives the illusion of a three-dimensional thing inside of your hand, basically. Then we're defining a texture, and that texture is going to be under the textures folder inside of the tutorial mod folder. So it's going to be tutorial mod textures inside of the item folder. There we go. So this matches here. And then it's going to look for a sapphire.png inside of this particular folder. That's all the magic that happens right here, and that's pretty much all that there's to it. Now, I want you to pay, once again, close attention to what you're writing inside of this JSON file. You can always take a look at the GitHub repository in the description below to compare your JSON file with what I have here. It is not parents, it is not layers, it is not item uppercase, it is not items. I know you might say, you have all of this here, but I've seen all of those mistakes, maybe all of them at once. Just make sure to compare this with your own file. Make sure that your directory structure, your folder structure is all right, and then you can proceed. And proceeding, we are going by adding the Sapphire PNG over here to our textures item folder. So you can see the Sapphire PNG is now right here in the item folder, and that's exactly what it's looking for. Fantastic. All of the textures are, of course, also available to you for download, so you can also add the Sapphire over here, so no worries at all. But that is basically how you add the item. Now you might say, oh, that's quite an involved process. Don't worry. Once we go into the game and actually see this item, we're going to add a second item as well, just so that you see that once you've done this once, it becomes, at some point, it becomes pretty routine. But for now, let's actually start the game and let's take a look at our Sapphire. Alright friends, let's back in Minecraft and let's just take a look in the ingredients tab at the very bottom. We should find, there we go, our Sapphire has been successfully added to the game. It has a name and it also has a texture. And can I just say, the texture looks pretty freaking cool. So that is one example of an item added. We're now going to add a second item and also a custom creative mode tab. Let's see. So in a second item, a lot of people say, oh, do we need another mod items class? You know, and this is sort of, once again, one of those things where if you're thinking that, you might want to take another look at Java, because that sort of seems to be an issue of thinking in programming terms, because you, of course, want to make this efficient. And to make this efficient, we just need another registry object. So below our Sapphire, we can just make another public static final registry object of type item. I'm going to call this the raw underscore Sapphire. And this is going to be equal to items.register. The name here is raw Sapphire, making sure that the name is something completely different or unique to this name, because if the names match, then you actually will get an error. So that's very important. Another supplier of a new item, passing in item properties. What the item properties do and a few of their things we're going to see in future tutorials, so no worries at all. For the time being, we're just going to keep them empty, basically. Yeah, but with this raw Sapphire, we can now add this to the creative mode tab as well. So we're just going to duplicate this line and click on this line, press Ctrl D. I'm going to change this to the raw Sapphire right here. And then we add the language. Similar thing. We're just going to duplicate this line by pressing Ctrl D. We're going to add a comma here, and we're going to change this to raw Sapphire. And then similar here, this is going to be the raw Sapphire. And now we've already added to the creative mode tab and we've already translated it. How are we going to do this with the models? Well, for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this JSON file, I'm going to drag it into the same folder while holding Control. You can see that a little plus appears, so it will duplicate this particular file. And I'm going to rename this file to raw underscore Sapphire. I'm going to hit OK. And then the only thing I need to change in this file is the texture that it points to, and that is the raw underscore Sapphire. And with that, the item model file, the translation, and the addition to the creative mode tab has been done immediately. We now just have to copy over the texture over here, and then we're done. This is it. The second item successfully added. But adding them all to the creative mode tabs that are already existing in vanilla, that's a little boring. Let's create our own creative mode tab, and this is going to be very interesting as well. In the item package, we're going to right-click new Java class. I'm going to call this the mod creative mode tabs, and this will be very interesting indeed. So this once again needs a deferred register. So we're going to say public static final deferred register. Once again, tab to autocomplete, this time of type creative mode tab. This one right here. There you go. I'm going to call this the creative mode tabs. And this is going to be equal to a deferred register. Once again, tab to autocomplete.create. So I'm basically always just starting to type in what I want to call. Similar here. This time we want to choose registries from Net Minecraft Core registries. Tab to autocomplete, and then choose the creative mode tab right here, and then passing in tutorialmod.modID as a second parameter. And then we're going to have a public static void register method. In there, we have an iEventBus called EventBus as a parameter, and then I'm going to call creative mode tabs.register, passing in the EventBus parameter, and immediately this register method will be called in the tutorial mod class. We're just going to call this at the very top over here. This is mod creative mode tabs.register, and then passing in the event bus once again. And then we want to actually register our creative mode tab. The way to do this is we're going to make a public static final registry object of type creative mode tab. And this will be called the tutorial tab, tutorial_tab. This will be equal to creative mode tabs.register. The first parameter is going to be the name, tutorial_tab, comma, and then a new supplier, once again, of a new creative mode tab. But the way that this works is we're going to say creative mode tab, and you can see it already suggests to us the builder right here. We're just going to hit tab to autocomplete, and we can actually add a few things. First thing we can do is we can add an icon over here, icon, tab to autocomplete, and inside of the item method, we're going to make a new supplier of a new item stack of mod items.sapphire.get. And what this is going to do is this is going to make it so that the tab icon is going to be of our sapphire. Very cool indeed. After the third closing parentheses, we're just going to make a new line over here. I'm going to say .title. Instead of here, we'll make a component.translatable. The string here is going to be creative tab.tutorial_tab. We'll have to translate this in a moment, but first of all, we're going to also call the display items method. And here we're going to start writing P, and you can see it suggests to us a display items generator. And we're going to hit tab to autocomplete. And I'm going to put in opening curly bracket. And inside of those curly brackets, we can now add all of our items to our custom tutorial tab, so to our custom creative mode tab. And the order we add them in is also the order they get added inside of the tab. We want to add a semicolon here at the end, and then we can add the items. So we're going to say poutput.accept mod items.sapphire.get. And then once again, just duplicate this and add the raw sapphire, and there we go. You can also add vanilla items here if you so choose to. This would be done by once again doing the accept and then just saying items dot, and then for example, the diamond. And then we don't need a get over here. We only need get for our custom items. And this is the custom creative mode tab added as well. We can now also add the translation. So let's just take this key to the en_us JSON file. And we'll go and add this right here. And this is just going to be our Sapphire tutorial tab. Awesome. And this is now going to be the thing that we see when we hover over the tab as well. So this is going to be translated properly as well. And that's absolutely phenomenal. For the sake of our argument, let's go into the game one more time, see our custom creative mode tab as well as the new raw sapphire item as well. Alright, we're back in Minecraft and let's just take a look, and you can see we already have a second page, which is a very, very good thing to see. And you can see the sapphire tutorial tab has been added. We have the sapphire, we have the raw sapphire, and we even have a diamond right here. The name is correct, the texture is correct, everything is working, and this is absolutely phenomenal. And with this, you can already see this is how you can add some items. But for now, we're just getting started. It's going to get way cooler than this. But as always, all of the code is going to be available to you in the description below, including also the download for the PNGs, so for the textures. That's all going to be there, so no worries at all. And next time, we're going to add custom blocks. You can see that in this video right here. Hope to see you there. So, yeah.